What is the difference between you and the dead religion? Because their God is dead. You claim your God is alive. You've never heard anything from him. You've never interacted with anything from his realm. And then you are walking. That's why when the devil comes, the first thing that comes out of you is fear. Because you are not sure if what you believe is true. And so we need to come to that point where we surrender to the government of the presence. And number one, this God, we accept everything he says he is, and we honor him for it. Number two, we wait upon him and insist that we too must see his reality. Number three, we insist that we wait until he speaks to us. And when he speaks to us, we want to participate in his program. This thing you say you are doing in Kenya, I want to participate in it. I don't just want to come to church and go back. What are you saying about Kenya that everybody is claiming and talking about? How come these things are a story to me? What are you doing? I want to participate. So that you don't just join the bandwagon and say God is doing something. What is God doing? Everybody stands up, they say we are in the last day, God is doing something. What is God doing? Who told you? How are you sure that God is doing something? And if God is doing something, what role are you going to play in it? These are the things that should burden us, because until we get there, we are not part of God's program. And if we are not part of God's program, we are not priests and we are not kings. Our lives will just be a function of receiving the leftovers that those who are participating in the kingdom are dropping by. And so you are receiving healings and impartation. Whereas the man who is coming to impart you is standing before God every day. It is the overflow of what runs out of him that he pours on you in the service. Thank God for that impartation. But when will you also appear on the mountain and say, the God who encountered this man, that he will blow and people will fall? The God who encountered this man, that he will touch cancer and cancer will die. When will I meet that God? Thank God for the healing, but when will I walk in divine health? Thank God for the impartation, but when will I see this God for my own self? These are the burdens of priests. Imagine you are in a family and every day your elder brother comes and says, Daddy said take 2,000. Tomorrow he comes, say Daddy said take food. Tomorrow he comes, he said Daddy said take transport to school. What day will I see Daddy? Why is it that you are the one always seeing Daddy to tell me what Daddy is saying? Me too, I want to hear what Daddy is saying. I'm not a stranger. I'm not a visitor. I'm also born into the family. Because I'm not only interested in what Daddy is giving. Who is Daddy? Where is Daddy? I want to see Daddy. That's where your journey in Christianity begins. And these are the molecules of priesthood. This is why priesthood is so vital and it cannot be taken out of the scene. When you enter those dimensions, then God begins to commit things to you. That's where litigation and legislation begins from. And we say in litigation and legislation, you are either an intercessor, or you are a gatekeeper, or you are a watcher. A watcher is one who sees to warn the church. A gatekeeper is one who defends the integrity of God and keeps the gate. And an intercessor is one who speaks to God on behalf of the people. You must fall into one of these categories to be relevant in God's agenda. If you are not in any of these categories, my brother, my sister, you are not part of God's agenda. You don't become a part of God's agenda because you belong to a church. You become a part of God's agenda because there's a responsibility God has committed to you. There are those who are seeing and are telling the church what God is saying. There are those who are standing at the gate to defend the integrity of God. And there are those who are talking to God about what is happening so that God can act on behalf of the church. You must fall into one of these categories. This is what Christianity is about. That you are a part and a parcel of God's program. But there are few people who are participating in God's program. Church is full, participators are empty. Full church, few participators. So there can be no legislation, there can be no litigation. The reason these things are very important is because if they don't happen, God's agenda will be truncated. And if they begin to happen, the agenda of the devil will be truncated. Now that I have been able to show you the dimensions of priesthood, Let me show you the agenda of the devil and how priesthood stops it. Because this is where the weight of litigation and legislation actually is. The ability to propagate laws that enforces God's will and truncates the will of the devil, and the ability to take advantage of already established laws to halt what the devil is doing, either in the lives of individuals, in the lives of families, in systems, and in territories. It's not just gathering in church to pray. It's what the prayer is doing. That is what the litigation is all about. That when we pray, what is the outcome of the prayer? But before you can pray those prayers, you need to know what to do to be able to pray those prayers. And that's what I've told you just now. Honoring him and ministering to him, beholding him, waiting upon him, and participating in his realm. By the time you are doing this, you can represent him. But in order to know where you are representing him, you need to know what the counter forces are doing. And so there are three categories of spirits and three categories of men you will contend with that I will talk to you about now as I begin to talk about legislation and litigation.